Hello, everybody. It's time for episode 216 of the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare, home of the state-of-the-art Now Community Wellness Center. The NBA playoffs are rolling with some awesome games. The Tigers are struggling at 9-21 as we record, dead last in the American League. And the longest of long shots, Rich Strike won the Kentucky Derby. And if we have a little time, we might sneak in a little entertainment in the next hour. I want to thank our other partners who include Crow Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the Wash of Owasso, and the ALS Association of Michigan. Well, fellas, what we typically do is catch up. You guys got anything to put on the table here at the beginning?
I always do.
Good for
this
you.
week, the newest update is, as you guys know, from last week, I've been looking for an apartment downtown Detroit. So I just wanted to share an email exchange I had about touring a apartment. So online, I think it was like Zillow. I was looking at this apartment. Great apartment. It looked awesome. It said it's like $800 a month for rent.
Wow.
So I saw that. I was like, this almost seems too good to be true. Sweet apartment, great location, $800 a month. Like, this doesn't seem right. So she emailed me and it's like trying to set up a tour just because I sent an email, said I was interested. And I said, no BS. So basically, like, what, how much am I gonna pay a month for this apartment, just so I don't waste your time and you don't waste my time. so that I email her. She emails back. Like I said, originally the cost said $900. She goes, oh yeah, it's $1,500 plus sewage and water plus parking. So essentially, those were each $250 a month. So basically, it went from $800 a month to $2,000 a month. And so I said, yep, not in my price range, so I'm not going to waste your time. And that was basically it. And so that's where I'm at right now. And that's happened a couple different times, maybe not to that extent. But I'm realizing that they kind of mislead you with how they post these things, man. It says $800. You click on it. You do everything but sign on the dotted line. Next thing you know, you got 10 different costs. How can they post a cost that's $800 and the actual cost is twice as much? Plus another $400. It's just that blew my mind. I couldn't believe that was even like legal.
Just wait for it, Jared. I mean, down here, it's probably happening everywhere, but around us, we're looking houses and all these new communities that are popping up, and they'll have the big post. It's basically the same thing you're talking about. The big poster board outside the community, homes starting at the low 400,000s, and you're like, okay, cool. But then they're building these new homes. Basically, that is just like the walls and the roof. You start adding windows, doors, actual cabinets, toilets, and all this, and you're up towards around like 500,000. It's like, how do you post it at starting at the low 400,000s? It's kind of like Airbnbs too.
Yeah.
You see like an Airbnb, it says like $180 a night. And you're like, oh, sweet. That's actually like pretty good deal. You hop on, you add your 4 nights. Next thing you know, it's still like $3,000. And you're like, wait, what just happened? Oh, the fees, the cleaning fees, the taxes, and the holding fee or whatever. And it's like a little misleading, but yeah, that's definitely annoying when, you're looking just for an apartment. You're like, just tell me how much I'm paying. Just tell me how much I'm paying per month. That's all I want to know.
Just one more slap in the face of adulthood there, Jared.
Yep.
It's not pretty. I was going to ask you though, and what part of town was that one in?
That one, I believe, was almost like right in the center of Detroit. I can't even tell you what portion that is, but right. But it was right off the corner of Comerica, right by Little Caesars Arena, essentially. So that's why it was perfect location.
I got a feeling, at your age and at your beginning of your professional career, and especially if you want to live in downtown Detroit, you had to have considered, a roommate, haven't you, or somebody to help share the cost.
Roommate is considered. It's it's a long story where we're not sure if it'll work out. If going down, it doesn't really make sense for him to go to Detroit as well as me. Right. So we debated it. That was obviously what I'd rather have to save some freaking dough. But I'll also say this, man. I mean, you guys both live on your own. I mean, Ted, how long did you have a roommate for? I can't imagine it was very long. I mean, I like having a roommate, but there's also, it's just, you kind of just want your own place, man. It's like, there's nothing wrong with my roommate. It's just like, it's just kind of the way I am. I just want my own place.
I agree with you. I mean, when I first started out, I had a roommate, and I was living at his place and had this little closet bedroom that I was paying him rent on. I lasted there, I think, maybe 6 months, and then a friend of ours lived across the street, and he had a room available, and it was a much nicer place. So I slid over there for a little while, and then I've got my very first studio apartment in downtown Owasso. You know, it was a walk up, it was a residential house, and the upstairs was the studio apartment. It was pretty cool, man. But in those days, uh, when I walked up the steps to get to the apartment level, which was just one room where my bed was and my TV, there was a little teeny kitchen and a little teeny bathroom with a shower. But going up the stairs, I'll never forget, it had classic red and black shag carpet, walls, ceiling, steps. The entire enclosure going up the steps was all those 70s shag carpet. But I think I paid like, and this is again the generational thing we have, I think it was like $85 a month.
That's awesome, man.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I had roommates all the way until I moved to Connecticut. And when I moved there to work at ESPN, I got my own apartment, and it was cool. You're right, Jared. It was cool finally, like, feeling independent, had my own place, could have over, people whenever I wanted to. But the cost thing, I was like, it was almost like a slap in the face, like, oh, all these bills are on me. All this rent is on me. So I only stayed there for like 6 months, and then I moved into a house with some buddies. But I get it. You're getting to the point, you got a job and, stable income, and you got a girlfriend.
Right.
It might be nice not to have your like buddy on the couch when you're wanting to watch a movie with your girlfriend or whatever. Right. So it's that cost thing, man. It does kind of kick you in the nuts when you think about it.
And I've had some, I went in blind at Grand Valley a couple times. Anytime you go in blind at college, you're going to get some roommate stories. So there was the one, I'll just share a quick one. There was the one time where, I think it was like the Ferris State versus Grand Valley State game. And a couple of my buddies came to go out in Grand Rapids for the game. This is like when we tried going out in Grand Rapids. We were 20 years old, fake IDs, dumb, and they all got snatched. Like, we went to 2 different places. Each of us had like 2 fake ones. They were gone within one night. So we came back like that night and didn't really think anything of it. Like, didn't even really drink. Came back to the apartment, woke up the next day. I like wake up, they all left. And next thing I know, like my 3 roommates like corner me in my room. And they're like, why'd you drive drunk last night? I was like, what? So they're like, why? Well, yeah, you drive drunk. That's like very selfish. Like, why would you ever even do that? And I literally just like stared at them. Like, I was like so perplexed at what was even going on, and just like walked right out. I was like, no, I didn't drive drunk. Don't tell me what to like do. And that was basically the start of the downfall of the year number 1 roommates. So you can say I'm just about roommated out.
Yeah.
So what's your option? I mean, what's your next step? You're just continuing looking online. You
search, yeah. I mean, hopefully not all places are misleading like that. That was that particular apartment complex. I don't know. Maybe more will be. If I'm just realizing that nothing is as cheap as I thought, then I guess roommate is the route we go, and we don't go downtown Detroit. But I should be able to find a place.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you got coworkers there. I mean, it's all, if you do some networking, ask around, if people know of places or areas, like I mentioned, the first apartment I had on my own in Owasso was an upstairs of a residential house. I mean, there might be something available like that might get closer to your price range. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. I'll look into it.
You're growing up, Jared. You're growing up.
Our little Jer Bear.
And I'll just say, man, what sucks is freaking moving. I'll be the first. That's probably the number one drawback I'm not looking forward to is unloading all that crap out of my apartment that I'm currently in.
Well, I know all about that, man. My last move, I said it was going to be my last one until they moved me into a nursing home. I had a 1-month gap between when I could get in my new house and when I left my other house, and I had to rent 2 large rental units to shift everything from the house into those rental units, and then wait a month, live with my brother and sister-in-law for a month, and then load and unload again a second time in a month. It was it was a freaking nightmare, man.
That's an
It
entire
makes me
house.
shiver. Yeah, the whole
I
house.
can't imagine. I'm surprised you didn't call me up for, to help you for a couple pieces of bubble gum. That seems like something you probably would have done. But I guess for whatever reason you weren't feeling it that day.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, it does get to the point where just buying beer and pizza for your buddies isn't enough.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, so I ran out of options here. I just got to pay someone to move.
Yes, absolutely. It's worth it at times for sure.
It is, yeah.
I remember. I'll just throw this out real quick. I remember my coach. Speaking of like the pizza and stuff, I remember basketball coach at Corona when he moved into his new house. Like we all went and helped, and he like gave us pizza. And I remember thinking it was like such a good deal at the time. Like, man, I would move every Saturday if I got pizza every time. And God, no, I wouldn't do that now. That's for sure.
No, when I got the job at ESPN, part of the perk, I guess, is they actually when I got the job down in Charlotte, from Connecticut to Charlotte, part of the perks are they pay to move you. And so, I mean, professional movers come. I don't know if you've ever had this, Ted, or apparently not, but like a moving company, they literally wrap everything. They want to do everything because like if something gets broken or if something gets put in the wrong place, the insurance, they have to pay for it. So it was like wild watching them move because they would individually wrap every cup, every plate. They even like stuff in the pantry, canned food and stuff, they're wrapping in the paper and then they're moving it. And, you get to your place and as they're unpacking it, you're just sitting there like watching them. Like a few times I'm like, do you guys need a hand? Like, I feel bad watching you guys move. And they're like, no, sit back. We got it. You tell us where to put it. And, we'll put it there. Cause if I went to lift something and broke it, it'd be on them. So, that was the way to go. I'll be honest. That was the way to go. It's nice when it's paid for by your company, but having people just come in. Cause some of those big things, couches, dressers, I don't want to move that stuff anymore. I don't want to go up and down stairs, strap that thing to my back and move it. Nope.
Yeah, and they're experts at it too. They know exactly how to turn the angle of all the furniture to go through the doorways. I did hire somebody one time when I moved my current and favorite wife here to Michigan. We had a long distance relationship and she was out in Baltimore, and we had a local moving company, went all the way out there, picked up her stuff and brought it here. But the last move, the nightmare move I was telling you about, and it was surprising, Jared. Yeah, I didn't get you and your brothers involved. Actually, my wife and I did a really good job of packing everything up into boxes, and the heavy furniture, I think my brother-in-law Joe helped me out with that. But we put all the boxes in a U-Haul, took them over to the storage unit and went from there. But the way to go, and especially if you have a few bucks, is a moving company. No question about it.
Just watch them do all the work.
Absolutely. Hey, before we keep moving along here and get into some of the hot topics, there has been some good local sports going on recently here. I just want to get this on the table in this opening part of the podcast. Chesapeake's Tyler Sager. Man, this kid is a stud on the hill for Chesapeake. He pitched his fourth straight no-hitter versus Mount Morris this week. The Indians improved to fourth straight no-hitter. Now,
what?
It's a little bit askew because Chesapeake's got a really good team. They're 14-1. A couple of those games were shortened, like 5-inning game and a 3-inning game, but still 4 straight no-hitters. I think for his career, I know he had a number of them last year. He's probably 10, 12 no-hitters. He's a stud over there at Chesapeake. Also, speaking of ball, Owasso swept Corona 2-1 and 5-4 in baseball at John Miller Field. Cavs did win a recent Waverly tournament, and they're playing pretty good baseball this year. The Trojans, speaking of them, the defending Division II softball champs, they swept Corona 13-0 and 17-0 in softball.
Ouch.
But they're moving on their way to a potential back-to-back state championship.
Is it still the one pitcher they had last year who pitched every game? Is it still her?
Yeah, Macy Ireland is still on the hill.
Yeah.
Owasso's 15-3. She's 15-3.
Yeah.
I got to send a shout out too to Corona's outstanding track and field team. Both the boys and girls took championships in the Cavalier Classic. Tarek Bauer won the 100 at 11.02 seconds, and his twin Wyatt finished third at 11.13. Wyatt, speaking of him, won the long jump after setting a new CHS record in their meet against Clio. He leaped 21 foot 10 inches. He passed one of your buddies, Jimmy Skodak, and also Corey Mort, one of your receivers there, Jared. They went 21 foot 9 inches, so a new record holder though there, and Wyatt Bauer. And keep in mind, both the Bauer boys only sophomores. And speaking of Corunna, the girls, Ellie Toney, probably the Cavalier Girl Athlete of the Year, I would think. She won the shot put with a toss of 33 foot plus and finished third in the discus. And also, I want to congratulate Corunna's Nick Crow, who was just named a Argus Press Memorial Healthcare Athlete of the Week. You know, Nick, the son of one of our sponsors, Troy Crow, shot a 78 in the recent tourney over in Perry at Glenbrier. So
that's
just a few highlights.
Especially though, and that's the thing about those high school scores. Those are 100% legit, and they're not a 78 of you and your buddies, you know, with a couple of breakfast balls. And no, it's 100% legit. Play the ball where it lies. Like that's what makes those scores very impressive. He's a good golfer, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like those Bauer boys, their names might be in a few record books by the time their careers are done at Corunna. They seem like
I've already heard the challenge from Grandpa Bauer that Wyatt's after my interception record, and I think he's going to have a real good shot at the overall record for interceptions. The season's going to be a little tough, but I think he has a shot at career.
The Holy Grail.
We could peek quickly. That has to be one of the longest standing Corunna football records, right?
It's one of them. I think there's some that are older than that though, but yeah, that goes all the way back to 1973.
I think there's one that there's that one that's never going to really be broken. There's another one where I think it's like Jeff Binsky had like 45 carries or something like that in one game. So I don't think that one will ever be touched. When you talk about a workhorse, man, they gave it to him every play.
Yeah, he was my classmate and teammate, man. He was a stud. You never wanted to hit him thigh level. I can tell you that. He was
my dentist.
Yes. One of the world's greatest guys, too. Real good guy.
Yeah, he was so entertaining because we would just talk about, as he's digging on my teeth, we would just talk about Corunna sports the whole time. But speaking of Corunna sports, I mean, yeah, it's cool to get those updates. The ground has been broken at Nick and Niece Field. I know we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting the turf field. I didn't know. Maybe I just forgot that they're getting new home stands also. Yep. Does that mean, I would assume, yes, a new press box too?
No, they're gonna keep the press box and build the stands around it.
Okay.
Yeah, because the press box it's really nice, and they put it on a brick foundation.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be sweet, man. You know what's funny is my girlfriend's mom was talking to me about it, and I think she's your age, Ted. She said she was sad. She's like, man, I remember when I was in school, we fundraised to redo the field. So I just thought that's kind of a funny little look at how things have changed, man. Back in the day, you were fundraising to turn the field from mud and dirt to grass, and now it's from grass to turf. So I thought that was funny.
It is kind of crazy. So a couple of my buddies actually, you know, they've been posting pictures on the Corunna Athletics Facebook and Twitter pages and stuff, and a couple buddies, you know, sent some pictures or said like, "Man, this is like an end of an era." It is as cool as it will be. It'll be so awesome. It'll look great. It is kind of crazy to think of Nick and Niece Field not being grass, though. I mean, it's just kind of like legendary, but it's gonna be so nice to have a turf.
Yeah, field. And the one nice thing about it, the tradition will continue there because it's at the same site. You know, it's right there on Kingsley Street and King, and but it's going to be great, and they'll also be able to host some playoff games down the road too. You know, so it's just an all around. I think it's gonna be awesome. Here we are, May 11th, I guess, and they're digging and going full force at it. You know, when you watch different construction projects out there, to me it seems like, boy, I don't know, they're going to get it done in time for fall. That's the mission.
Say what, three months basically?
Yeah. New bleachers and new field. I'm going to watch it very closely from my dad's house.
Listen, I worked in a landscaping biz for a couple of years, man. The due dates add about another month to it. That's more likely the date that it'll be ready. So,
especially like you said, especially in Michigan, just with weather or, you know, whatever. They better have that done, or else they're going to be playing games at Elsa Meyer. They're going to be going over to Elsa Meyer. And
or like Jared said, maybe Wilman if there's openings, you know.
Right. No, that'll be awesome. It'll be cool. Are they going to have some sort of, I would assume, like a dedication ceremony or for the first home game, you know, something like that?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
I believe it's August 25th, I think, is their first home game.
Cool.
So hopefully they stay on construction schedule there. Well, speaking of schedule, let's keep this show moving. We got a lot to get into here today, and we'll be right back with an assortment of different sports topics right after this. All right, let's jump right out of the gate here, if you don't mind, Jared.
Yep.
I'm going to lead into you. I mean,
Sorry.
one of the most amazing events I ever saw was the Kentucky Derby this year. 80-1 long shot. I mean, unbelievable. Rich Strike. I've never seen anything like it. And then we've all had the chance to watch the replay with the arrow pointing to the horse and how he made his way through the pack with his jockey, Sonny Leone. You know, a masterful ride. Just that kind of sets it up. Thoughts on the Kentucky Derby?
You nailed it. And your tweet was the first time I really even thought about that it was the best race ever. It was. Before I even saw the aerial cam, you know, after I rewatched it on YouTube, and I didn't even watch this live, and
Right.
I still had goosebumps and chills from watching the replay. After I watched it, I think the first time through, I said, all right, you know, I'm just going to watch this horse this whole time around.
Yeah.
And he literally, it's like, even from the very start, he lets all the horses run by him, and then he just darts to the inside of the track. It was, you just don't see horses like, it seemed like it was like such a strategic race. It blew my mind. You know, the whole time on the backstretch, he's basically jammed up. As soon as he got it, he had an opening, he took the shot and just ran for it. And I was enthralled by the story of this freaking horse. So I had to look it up a little bit more to it. So basically they got this horse. It was, they bought it for like $30,000, and they even put it up into a like $30,000 claim race. This is how they bought it, which is basically all these horses run and people watch it and basically claim these horses for $30,000 or whatever the cost ends up being. They didn't even get the horse that they wanted in that race. They ended up with freaking Rich Strike. And they run this race, and like you said, Sonny Leone, what a freaking jockey. It's funny, his story is he came basically, the only reason he ended up running on this horse is because the trainer, Eric Reed, they happened to win a race like a couple years ago together. And so he remembered him, and he ended up said, hey, you know, Rich Strike. And they ended up kind of running together, and they got good, and they just had a good rapport. I mean, so he was basically the number 3 jockey at some track in Hamilton County, Ohio. He wasn't even the number 1 jockey at that freaking track. So then he ends up running, and it ends up being the second longest shot ever. I mean, a couple of the other notables were Country House in 2019, but you almost can't even say that one because that was the Hall of Famer freaking trained that horse. So a lot of people sort of saw that, you know, somewhat coming. And then the other big one was 50-1 in Mind That Bird in 2009. And that one had a legendary jockey on him. This one had just nothing. It was just completely out of left field. I loved it how right after they won, they interviewed him. They said, we wouldn't enter this horse if we didn't think we had a chance to win. They said, you know, as the races got longer, this horse got better. He always raced great at Churchill Downs for whatever reason. But I just thought it was funny that the guy said that. But yet when the horse crossed the finish line, the freaking trainer passed out. So I don't think they were quite thinking they were going to win the race. But what a race, man. And that horse, man, it's got some freaking serious heart.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what its odds will be in the next couple, you know, the Triple Crown races. If it's still going to be a long shot, because it didn't have great odds to win the Kentucky Derby. So it's now all of a sudden it going to be the favorite to win the next 2. I'll be curious to see that. I was going to read, so friend of the pod, Adam Stenko. We haven't had him on in a little while actually, but he's got his family is into horse racing. He tweeted out, basically, I was going to say what you just explained, Jared, but he said they got that horse in a claiming race. To put it in NBA terms, it'd be like if a dude on a 10-day contract won MVP of the NBA Finals. You know, that's kind of what it was. It's almost like they had a spot in the Kentucky Derby, didn't have a horse. So they just went to a claiming race. We're like, that guy right there. And like you said, it wasn't even the one they originally wanted. And now he just won the Kentucky Derby. So
it was hilarious afterwards. And Ted, I'm sure you get a kick out of this. The horse freaking attacking the other pony and the rider. And what was like, it was almost like irritating the hell out of me watching it, because like Mike Tirico and crew, like they kept trying to talk over it. Right. They kept trying to act like it wasn't happening. And everyone was like, dude, what, like, just stop. You can't keep talking over this thing. This horse is literally losing its mind. But no, that horse, man, they finally got it under control. But what a freaking 1 in a million story. We'll never see another race like that a story like that will never happen. You nailed it right when you tweeted it out, right when it happened. It's the best Kentucky race ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just absolutely stunned, and I think they do such a great job after the race, because you're watching the race live, if you are watching it live, and you're getting into it, and and you're watching them come down the stretch, and the announcer's getting you all fired up. But really, the best part of the Kentucky Derby race is watching the recap, and with the arrows pointing at the horse, how he comes through. And if anybody hasn't watched that by now, you gotta watch this jockey and this horse, the absolute perfect race. You can never have a more perfect race than that. I think it was just stunning.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Larry Colmus, who is the announcer. What a freaking call, man.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, they come out of like the stars for one race a year, and then we never see him again until the very next year. I mean, he nailed it at the very end of that race with the Rich Strike coming up on the inside. And what was funny to me is I was kind of thinking about, man, it's like he took like a 2-second pause before he said that. And I'm just, picturing behind the scenes, I'm thinking this guy probably had no idea who the hell this horse was as it was coming up at the very last second. I'm thinking his stat guy must have just passed him a sticky note before he said that name, because there's no way in hell he was he knew every single, horse that was in that race, what exactly they look like, especially when it's the longest shot. But he nailed it, man. Larry Colmus, what an announcer.
And speaking of that, and the entire Kentucky Derby and the way it shaked out, I mean, if somebody had that horse straight up, or if somebody had it in an exacta, perfecta, or the superfecta, what did I see something that if you paid $1 and you got the exact superfecta, you got $300,000 or something like that?
If you would have just done every single, because it was the longest shot, if you would have just done every single horse, like every single combination, you still would have made, like you said, $300,000. Which, man, yeah, nobody won this weekend other than Twin Spires and the casinos. So that's never a good weekend, but that's the one time I'll let it go without complaining.
Amazing. Speaking of amazing, the NBA playoffs, we've talked about it many times that it may be the greatest professional sports tournament, and it's not disappointed at all. Again, the double headers, it's almost like you're depressed when they don't have NBA basketball on a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they've been good. And I know last week we talked about it, that it seemed like the Suns were going to run away with their series, but then series goes back to Dallas and Luka just steps up and even it up. Now, last night, the Suns did blow them out. So it's up to 3-2 Phoenix right now. But it seems like if Dallas can win game 6 and get it back to Phoenix, they've got a guy in Luka Doncic who could go out and drop 40 and win one game, for them. So I'll be curious to see that series. It seems like some of the other ones, the Sixers just aren't healthy. Like Embiid's just kind of banged up. Harden is not playing that well. It seems like the Heat are going to win that one. The Bucks and Celtics, though, that one's been great. That's been a classic Eastern Conference, like physical, sometimes a little bit low scoring, a little bit of ugly basketball sometimes. But then you have the sequence where Giannis dunks on 35-year-old Al Horford, and Horford turns back the clocks and looks like he's 25 years old, drops 30 points and dunks on Giannis and stuff. Yeah. So that's what I mean, man. The playoffs, they, especially for an NBA fan, they deliver all the time. Like the Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby always delivers. Yeah. So do the NBA playoffs.
That Al Horford thing, man. What was going on the last 4 years of his career where everyone was just shelving him? Was that his fault? Did he finally, get a little bit of energy when he joined the Celtics team and saw the playoff chance and all that? Or were teams really that dumb just to shelve him? Because what a freaking game that was. And I love it, man. He's not scared of Giannis. Yeah. He's always been a Michigan legend, Al Horford, a forgotten Michigan legend, really, because he's from Grand Ledge. It's just not a place you normally would expect some NBA All-Star to come from. But no, my favorite series, you nailed it. It's Suns versus Mavericks. I was very nervous heading into last night's game. I feel a lot better recording today than I would have last night when we were originally supposed to record, because, man, I mean, CP3 did not have a good game 3. He had 7 turnovers. Game 4, I mean, look at this stat line: 5 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. I mean, that's like something I could do if I went out there. But Devin Booker finally showed up, and I was really starting to wonder about this guy. He's in the MVP conversation, but he's been doing almost nothing this whole playoffs. He finally shows up in game 5, gives him a big win. But, man, Luka Doncic, he's been the marvel of the playoffs. How do you guard that guy? Seriously, I don't know how you can. This is going to sound so damn dumb, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I have to. His game sort of reminds me of what my game was when I was in like 6th grade, and I was the same exact height I am now. Honestly, it's very similar. I was not the fastest guy, but I was bigger than most. I was bigger than all the guards. And like I said, I'm literally the same exact size as I am now as a 23-year-old as I was in 6th grade. But I was bigger than all the guards, and I was quicker than all centers. So I could kind of do the same sort of game, take them down low if I needed to. Obviously not putting up 40 points a game, but I just, in one world, I was like a Doncic-esque middle schooler. So that was a bit of a stretch, but I can see the similarities.
Yeah. No, I could see that. He definitely has that old man's game or 6th grade Jared Fattel game, apparently. Because, he doesn't blow by anyone. He does. Even his step back 3 is like slow. Like when he steps back and shoots, it's like, how do people not block this? But he gets it off. He makes those shots that you see old dudes make at the Y, on Saturday morning runs. And he just, you can't guard him. And that's what people have said. It's to the point now where when you play the Mavs, you basically, you let him get his and you try and stop everyone else. Luka's gonna get his. He's gonna get rebounds. He's gonna get assists. And you just hope that, one of the other guys doesn't go off. But I would love to see the Mavs beat the Suns after all the Suns are the best team in basketball and CP3 finally going to get his ring and Devin Booker and their coach won coach of the year. I would love it. Just put CP3 away again.
It's going to be quite a game going back to Dallas for sure. And by the way, Jared's memory of his 6th grade days and my memory of watching him a little bit different, but we'll leave that alone.
All right, man. Some people said I was Doncic-esque. I don't know. I didn't say it, but other people were saying it.
Speaking of him, and they just announced the MVP, and it was Jokic from Denver, and those two play a very similar game, I think. Should there be any controversy of him winning back-to-back MVPs, or is that pretty much a no-brainer? I know Embiid, there's a lot of support for him, I thought, this year, and justified. I thought he's a heck of a player himself.
It confuses me how these like narratives get started. How is Luka never in the MVP conversation all year? And I think Jokic was the right pick. I mean, you can't go off of what happens in the playoffs, especially with his totally depleted roster, and act like it was the wrong pick a couple months later. One, it's a regular season award. I thought he had the best regular season. Joel Embiid was great, but I just wouldn't put it to the same level. So no, I had no problem with the MVP.
Yeah. I mean, you look at numbers. You look at numbers: 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists. That's pretty solid.
It's what all time ever.
Yeah, and I think Jokic, because Jamal Murray was out all year, Michael Porter was out a lot. So yeah, Jokic had to carry Denver the whole time. I know Embiid probably would have deserved it too, but no problem with Jokic winning it.
Also, with the playoffs and this Grizzly Warriors matchup, I really liked that. If Morant was still healthy, that'd be one heck of a series. And now all the big controversy is, Jordan Poole screwed up his knee. He's got a knee bruise. Why isn't he playing? Is a question number one. But I guess I'm not in his shoes. But I did want to point out, and we talked about it before, and everybody knows we're big Michigan fans. Jordan Poole. I mean, the dude. I mean, how do you step up that quickly and be that good? I mean, we saw signs of it at Michigan. We've talked about that, but it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he's the second best player on the Warriors. I don't really know how else you can argue that behind Steph. Maybe you could throw Draymond. He's definitely better than Clay. I don't know. I don't know where that came from. It's definitely partially due to where he was drafted and the fact that he could just grow under, two of the best shooters that have ever played in the NBA. That definitely helped him. But no one saw this coming. I 100% didn't. I mean, we saw that he had some, confidence and could hit some big time shots. We saw that against Houston, but other than that, no, I figured maybe, he's a 6th man of the year. Maybe is like his cap. That's what I would have predicted. No, nothing along these lines. It's freaking crazy. Another guy who's kind of just been kind of popping off on the scene, Matt, I got to ask you about him. It's JJ Redick, man. Was there like a ESPN company-wide email blast that like that playoffs are gonna be the time of JJ Redick? We're gonna freaking push this guy. I wouldn't fault you if you did, because he's been great, man. He's had a podcast I've been listening to for a couple years now, and I love the podcast. He gets great guests. He actually just had Tim Legler on, and they had a great conversation for about an hour and 15 minutes. So he's been doing a great job. I think he's, poised to be maybe the next big basketball announcer if he wants to go that route.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of those that just obviously he just played, or he just finished his career, so he knows the game, he knows the current players, he knows like the ins and outs of what these dudes are talking about, but he doesn't like sugarcoat anything. He doesn't step down when he's on First Take with Stephen A. He's not going to back down from Stephen A. If Stephen A spouts off on something, he's going to call him out. And yeah, I remember when he had his podcast and there'd be some rumblings like we might be bringing this guy on when his career, because he had his podcast when he was still playing. And there were some rumblings, kind of like the Tom Brady thing right now. There was like, hey, we might be bringing JJ Redick on as an NBA analyst, when he retires. And some people were like, yeah, I don't know. But right when he started, he's already calling games too. He went straight from podcast to going to be like an analyst in studio. And now he's calling games too. So he's burst right down. He's gonna move up quick.
Yeah. He's not just calling games; he's calling playoff games, NBA playoff games.
Pretty nuts. Yep. He's great, man. It's weird how he was so hated by, like, I would say probably especially Matt's. That was like Matt's generation coming through that freaking hated his guts. Yeah. I always loved him. I mean, that was actually one of my first basketball memories ever was, the whole ESPN rollout of JJ Redick versus like North Carolina on some random like Saturday night with my brothers. I still have that image in my head. He's awesome. I loved him throughout his whole NBA career, and I really do think that he's one of the best things going at ESPN. And like you said, man, he's great. He can do it all. He just got started in this freaking biz. He's already doing First Take. He's already doing NBA playoff games. I mean, he's only going to get better, and he's already pretty damn good. So I felt the need to throw him out, man. I'm loving his stuff.
That's a good call, Jared.
It's something that I think like podcast has done that people are going to move right into the broadcasting field, maybe seamlessly, like if you've been doing a podcast for 6 years or something, maybe from high school through college, or, if you're a professional athlete and you're doing a podcast your whole career, and then you want to go into broadcasting after your career, well, you've already been doing a podcast for, 10 years or something. So you've already got that down. It is kind of crazy. I'll be curious to see like what his career trajectory is, to see the money that Fox is giving Tom Brady. I understand it's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. You could make an argument he's one of the best athletes of all time, not just NFL, one of the most accomplished athletes ever. 10 years, $375 million to be the lead analyst for Fox, though. That's like that. It's more money than he's made in his playing career. Yeah, it's more money than he's made in his playing career. That is like, it's a lot of money.
That's a perfect segue there, because that was definitely the hot topic that I wanted to get into a little bit. I mean, I retweeted, somebody laid out, all the NFL number one broadcast teams. I mean, you got Jim Nantz and Romo at CBS, top good as it gets. Kevin Burkhardt, who's always been, I thought, a bit underrated. He's going to do a real good job as play-by-play guy. And I don't know who they're teaming him up with this season, but
yeah.
Once Brady retires, it'll be Brady. Then you got Tirico and Collinsworth, NBC, Buck and Aikman now part of your family, Matt, and that's going to be exciting. And Al Michaels and Kurt Herbstreit doing NFL games on Amazon. I mean, that's a pretty good roster right there, I'd say.
It's the best it's ever been. I don't know. I don't know how you could argue that. Every primetime game is going to have a great crew on it.
The one thing though about Brady, he's never done this before. As much as we love Brady, as like smart as he is, and you listen to him talk, you can tell he gets it. It's not the same. Remember, Jason Witten went into the booth and was almost a train wreck. And I think Tony Romo went right into the booth so easily and was so good. It's made people think like, oh, anyone can do this. And Ted, better than anyone. You can't just slide into that and know what you're doing. Brady can know the game as well as anyone, and, be as locked in with the players, because, he's obviously, he will be coming straight from the field to the booth. I'll be curious to see how he does. It's not as easy as everyone thinks it is.
It isn't, but make no mistake about it. Tom Brady's a very unique individual, and it's not like he's going in raw. He's got plenty of on mic experience. I know he was doing a regular weekly feature with Jim Gray, and the guy knows his stuff. I think he's going to be a no-brainer. Is he worth $375 million? I don't know about that, but boy, that's up the ante for all the other ones, hasn't it? And one other question I have, we've talked about in the past before that I'm a big slappy for Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning, he must have plenty of money, because it seems like the same sort of deal would have been offered to him somewhere along the line, wouldn't you think?
Well, he's got his Omaha Productions, him and Eli's production company is actually growing quite a bit, and they're still doing the Manning cast, of course, but they've got like Vince Carter is going to have a show with them. Greg McElroy is going to have a college football show with them. Actually, like some people that I used to work with are going to work with McElroy on that. And what they're doing, it's actually like a great deal for ESPN. These aren't like ESPN employees, but ESPN is like contracting them out for their content. So they're not having to pay, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, McElroy, all these other people.
No
but they're
production
paying for
cost.
their content to be on the app, on ESPN Plus and everything. And eventually probably on ESPN2 or whatever. But I think Peyton, from the sounds of it, Peyton Manning he's well in on this Omaha Productions, trying to do more than just call football games. So
makes sense.
Who do I need to get in front of to pitch the idea just to have Manning do Gruden's QB room, but with Manning instead of Gruden? Gruden. I mean, that show would be the best show on ESPN right now. If they, I mean, that show was awesome when Gruden did it. So imagine what it'd be like with somebody like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. It'd be freaking incredible. But can we just, how about the fact that just appreciate that Tom Brady is even doing this? Because I don't know about you guys. I thought he was, as soon as his football career was done, I thought he was going to go to TB12 method and start selling all that stuff. And that was going to be his career. So at least even if he ends up being bad, which I just can't see, I think he's going to be, if I had to make a bet, I think he's going to be the best to ever do it for color. I really do. If he legitimately gives it a try and like is full bore at it, like we've seen Tony Romo do, I think he will be. But no, how about the fact that we just even get to see it? Because this was a big upset. I thought he was never going to do this type of thing.
I mean, it's definitely, we kind of talked about it when ESPN brought Buck and Aikman in. It's definitely Fox saying we got to keep something like this if we want to have the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like we can't have, even though I like him, we can't have Aqib Talib being our lead color guy if we want to keep the Super Bowl. If you have Tom Brady as your lead analyst, the Super Bowl will be like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. We'll have the greatest of all time calling the Super Bowl. Sounds pretty cool.
I think that'll work for sure. And you guys know how much I loved the Manning cast. I think though, with the addition of Buck and Aikman, I think my new plan is going to be recording the Manning cast and just watch some of the interviews. I'm going to watch the game with Buck and Aikman. No doubt about it.
See, I like Buck and Aikman. Joe Buck catches so much flack, and I never get it. I like him a lot.
Great.
Aikman's good. I'm not like a huge Aikman fan. He's good. But them together are really good. I feel like we said about the Manning cast, it's all about the guests. When they have good guests, I'll definitely be watching that. But that's tough. It's tough to get, like, what do you have to choose? You have to pick between Buck and Aikman and the Manning cast.
It does feel like a waste, almost because it's like, man, two of the best like broadcast type things going there at the same exact time. I mean, it is kind of a bummer, but I guess it's just a little bit of an embarrassment of riches for us. Like you said, you got to get the DVR out.
Amen.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but maybe I'll just be flipping back and forth throughout the game.
Or, of course, your generation, you could probably just click on your phone and watch whatever you want to on YouTube or wherever it's posted, right?
Right. Yeah. Whatever pops off on the Manning cast, it's going viral on Twitter. So you can just keep up with it that way as well.
Absolutely.
The one thing that we've said around the office, and you can work your way up. This isn't like inside baseball stuff, but you can work your way up and make some good money working in TV production. But when you see the money that they're throwing out for these analysts, it's like, hey man, how about you throw a little more our way? We're the ones like making this look good on TV. Maybe give us a little bump,
Here's just a question that popped in my head since you're talking about that. You guys, neither one of you are unionized, are you?
No.
I didn't think
very
so.
Little of the employees. I think it's very rare that, you got to be making the top of the top to be salaried and benefits and all that sort of stuff. At least that's what it's like where I work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not very many anymore. California, I think, is still heavy with the union for like broadcast production. There is still a lot of people down here in my office that do freelance work, and then they work like for ESPN part-time. They'll work for like the Panthers or the Hornets or whatever, and then they'll work for ESPN, 2 or 3 days a week. But the whole union thing has kind of started to go away just because there's so many people who do this now. They don't need to pay a union. They don't need to pay those union fees and all that kind of stuff. So even if you just have part-time employees or freelance employees, it's good enough.
And it's like they pay a man a lot per hour, at least in my experience of how I see it working is, it kind of makes up for it in that way, where if you're somebody like, Matt, who's married, has a wife with benefits, it just kind of perfectly works, and you each kind of benefit off each other. So I got until I'm about 26 to sort of figure that part out. Until then, I'm looking good. So
yeah, well, good deal. And I was going to ask you, Matt, working for Disney. I mean, do they? Again, I don't want to get into your financial situation, but just a quick question about: do they give you annual bumps, or how does that work to where you get a raise?
Yeah, so we have. I mean, I know, Jared, it's a little different. We're mostly all full-time employees, full-time staffed employees. There are still some part-time. They're kind of called recurring employees. Like they can tell them, we don't need you for the month of June, so we'll call you back in July. There's very few of those. Most of us are full-time staffed employees. So yeah, we have our benefits, all through Disney and everything. We get annual raises. We get annual bump or bonuses at the end of the year. It's all performance-based. So we get our reviews at the end of the year on what your performance is, and that's what your raise and your bonus is based on. So yeah, it's the old school people who've worked in TV production. That Jared, I'm sure there's a bunch who work with you, been doing freelance type work for 30 years, where I've been working in TV, directing games for 30 years. It's a very different world. Right. I think because those freelance rates, they have to pay those people so much money to be a freelancer, like a union. So they've started hiring people full time because, you can pay in other ways too. So it's definitely, I mean, the hours, that's probably the one drawback of working in TV production. I mean, us figuring out when to record our podcast, we have to deal with it. Your hours are just all over the place. You don't work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. You're working weekends, you're working holidays. That's the one drawback, but you can work yourself into a pretty comfortable life for sure.
I'll tell you what, you guys have done well so far, especially you, Matt. You got more time under your belt. I'm envious of both of you. I mean, I've had my career in sports and local radio broadcasting as a sideline. A lot of people think that's what I do full time or have done.
Pretty impressive.
Huh? Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, but if you go into anything and any recommendation we would give to any youngster out there that wants to, be successful in life, you got to put the time in. You have to do your homework, and you have to just grind it, and you have to go after it. Like you said, I have a full-time job, or had a full-time job, worked my way up through the company that I was with. But all along I had the second sideline job of broadcasting on the radio. And actually there was a period of life where I had 3 jobs because I was doing refereeing and umpiring to put pocket change. So the whole thing in life, it's not handed to you. You got to hustle. How's that for an old boomer guy trying to pass on some worldly advice?
Hustle your whole life, and you retire with a boat on the water.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, I'll tell you what, fellas, let's take a short pause and let's wrap up the show with just a couple other topics. We got to talk a little Tigers. We won't have to dwell on it very long, but let's come back right after this. All right, Jared, it's starting with you again. Our Tigers, what in the heck is going on? I mean, I know we had set it up, especially you, a few weeks ago, saying, don't get too excited. This team's still rebuilding. But did we see this coming, where they're the worst team in the American League right at this point where we're recording?
No, we didn't. Coming into the year, we just hoped that they would have started better than they did last year in the month of April and May. They didn't. Started basically exactly the same. And it's just, there's 2 ways to kind of view it from here on out. I don't think this team is what we thought it was. But what I would say is I do think that this team has still a lot of promise, in the next couple years. I mean, Tarek Skubal, man, this guy he's going to
be the ace.
He's got potential to be a Cy Young type pitcher if he keeps developing, man. He's a stud. And then we just have a lot of other young arms, and Javier Baez. I mean, that ended up being a great addition. We still got him on the books for 6 more years, as long as he keeps re-signing and all those sort of things behind the scenes. But No, I think it's, you go drive yourself crazy if you hold this team to those, playoff expectations, because this team, it's just not there yet. The bats aren't there. Scope's finally kind of getting some hits, getting something going. Same thing with Candelario, but you'll drive yourself crazy if you keep trying to hold this team to that standard. There's not that. So just appreciate them for what they are, which is a nice young upstart team. Give them a year, and hopefully next year is the legit year that we can really push, which, it's crazy to say that with still so much season left, but I don't know, man. It's a lot of ground to make up already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing. People talk about like these early season games, don't really mean much. But when you're sitting at 9-21, it does mean a lot because, like what you just said, Jared, that's a lot of ground to make up. It's not like the White Sox or the Twins or whoever else, the Guardians. It's not like they're all of a sudden going to slide and lose 30 straight. The Tigers have dug themselves into a big hole, and I think that's a thing. I mean, we were super excited, and rightfully so, for the Tigers coming into the season. They had a lot of promise. They,
Mm-hmm.
some of the rookies were coming up, some of the guys they drafted. We thought Casey Mize was going to, kind of turn into an ace. He's just had injury issues. Matt Manning, hopefully he's going to get healthy. So like they have been hit by the injury bug. They just haven't performed. And that's what's a little, you can be disappointed, I feel like, is the offense. I mean, the offense has just been so bad. The pitching, we talked about, I feel like I'm repeating myself. The pitching has been pretty good, but the offense just hasn't been there. And
yeah,
did we think that they would be like just mashing home runs left and right? No, but like they're last in so many offensive categories that it's like, when can this turn around? Health is one thing. Mize can come back. Manning can come back. Some of these guys, Riley Green, can come back and be healthy, but will they actually start hitting the ball? They're so bad with runners in scoring position. It's like so frustrating when I'm watching the games and there's a guy in second or third and they ground into a double play or, a couple pop outs and the inning's over. It's just like, I miss the days of having Victor Martinez and Miguel Cabrera just driving dudes in over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, man, when you really think of how good those goddamn teams were. It's like it's just a night and day between this offense we have now and that offense we had, back in the Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, era. It's sad, but like I said, this, to me, the biggest storyline of this year has been Tarek Skubal. I really do think that he's kind of emerging himself as our best pitcher for years to come. And I think that, this year is kind of the year that it really establishes himself. And then I think next year, as long as he stays healthy, knock on wood, I really do think he's going to make a push for, an all-star game. He's pitching his nuts off right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. As an old-time baseball fan, they always say you got to have strength up the middle. Now, I'm not too concerned with the Tiger pitching staff. But and shortstop, obviously, Baez is going to be there for 6 years, hopefully, at least. But they've got to solve center field. They've got to solve catcher. And, if Scope can keep going, maybe he's the answer at second base. But if you look at championship teams, they got to be strong up the middle. And they've got a few holes there that they've got to shore up. I go back to 2006 when the Tigers, just out of the blue, signed Pudge Rodriguez. And from that moment on, they started fitting pieces into the puzzle. And that, 8 to 10 year stretch of Tiger baseball, the biggest shame in that is they never won a World Series. But boy, they were a competitive product. Comerica Park was packed every night. It was electric atmosphere down there, and they were some team to watch. So that's what this team, I think, still has some potential with the manager they have. And the young arms they do have, and they still have some other decent young players in the minor leagues. This year's probably a wash. Now, what they got to do the rest of this year is see what they can do to try and kind of fight their way to 500 and start playing decent baseball again. But maybe our expectations were a little too high at the beginning of the season, and injuries and some of their play just hasn't panned out.
Yeah, you got to hope. I think we said it a week or two ago. We were talking about how can they build this thing into a winner, kind of like what you're saying back in the early 2000s when they started signing some guys. They've got to show some of these free agents that there is promise,
Right.
If they finish the year 40 and 122, it's not going to look that good. So yeah, hopefully they can turn things around and teams can see, okay, there's something there. Torkelson's been, I don't know if you want to say he's been disappointing. He's a rookie. So maybe we were thinking he'd be too good too early, but hopefully he can kind of get into a groove when get some at bats under his belt. And they just need to start playing better. I mean, you talking about the early 2000s, because you think about it, Maglio Ordonez signed, they got Placido Polanco, they had Carlos Guillen, so they started, then the whole Curtis Granderson, they actually had some guys like coming through the system, Verlander, who were really good. So, and then obviously the big thing was when they traded for Miguel Cabrera. So, once you start kind of piecing things together, you can build a winner. There's definite holes on this roster, though. Scope, he's a solid player, but I don't know if he's going to turn himself into like what he used to be. He's just looking pretty. Even Candelario has just been pretty disappointing. I don't know if they're just in a funk. I don't know what it is, but it's been tough to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's the season from hell. I threw that out, 3 weeks ago. That's just kind of the vibe it had, and that seems to be the way it's heading. One thing I will throw out there about the Tigers in this season is it sucks because it's like, man, as soon as I get into baseball, think about it, my whole life, I didn't even watch a second of the Tigers from like 2006 to 2016 or so. Basically, right as I get back into it this year, they aren't good. Again, so it's unfortunate. One thing that's sad is Akil Baddoo,
sent down to the minors, huh?
Down to the minors. I know Ted and all the old geezers who felt the need to say, "I told you so, I told you so," all time last year. I know they're loving it, but that was a very sad day because, man, that guy, he still could come back. I'm still not selling all my stock in Akil Baddoo, but what a freaking electric factory he was last season. And I mean, that's the thing. That's what you got to understand, man, is he was a one-man electricity bolt to that roster last year. Kind of exactly what we need right now, where he was batting 400 for a whole month, walk-offs, home runs, stealing bases, making defensive diving grabs, and kind of just electrifying the whole locker room. And I don't know. We don't have that guy right now. We need an Akil Baddoo to really kind of jumpstart this team.
He was that guy, and you hope maybe if he goes down to the minors and just gets some good games under his belt, builds his confidence back up. That's hopefully what'll happen. Because he needs to be that guy. Because Baez brings some energy, and Torkelson does too when he's playing well. Miggy is still Miggy, so he's gonna be fun. But yeah, they needed a dude like Baddoo to be like stretching a double into a triple. Doing stuff like that, diving for catches in the outfield. When you mentioned about the Tigers not winning a World Series during that, 10, 12-year stretch where they were really good, it kind of reminds me of the Pistons kind of in that same era actually getting a ring. Like they went to 5 straight Eastern Conference Finals. They won a bunch of division titles, playoffs for like 8 straight years, but they got that one ring. So that's what makes the whole, like that whole run like validated, because they did get the one ring. People almost forget. I've talked to some friends at work or whatever about the Tigers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they were good there for a pretty good stretch." It's like, yeah, they made 2 World Series and they were in the playoffs every year for like 10 straight years, but they didn't win a World Series, so people forget about it.
Absolutely.
So that's
it will be forgotten about. That's a fact. It's sad to say, but they will be forgotten about.
Well, when you think Tigers and history and success, you got to go back to 84 because they won the World Series. It's that simple. Before we wrap up the show, fellas, we're already an hour in. Informal entertainment tonight, sports related. First of all, winning time has been completed. Watch the whole series. I've come around a bit on it, Jared. I still wouldn't want to be Jerry West, but we'll leave that alone. But the series itself, I thought really well done. I thought for putting basketball actors playing basketball, the way they cut it and put it together, they're pretty good, I thought, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I thought the show, man, it was great. It obviously has its flaws, and people, old timers like Jerry West and yourself, will be sure to point it out. But no, I think for a season 1, they kind of see what worked, see what didn't. They can maybe craft Jerry West's character, guys like that, maybe a little bit more realistic in season 2. And I think this show is going to take off. I think season 2 is really where it's going to be great, because that's where Bird really comes into the picture. I mean, If you remember the 81 playoffs, I don't really remember how the Lakers got knocked out, but I know it's the Rockets versus Celtics in 81. So this season was, all about the celebration, the championship, whereas season 2 would probably be a little bit more negative to the Lakers. So no, I can't wait to see it. I still think it's a great show. Got a bad rap by a couple of old timers. But no, it's still a great show, and I can't wait to see what they do in season 2.
I'll get to it at some point because I do really want to watch
for Hard Knocks.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm waiting for Hard Knocks, which kind of when does Hard Knocks start? I'm trying to remember.
It's August.
August. First week August, second week August, one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably when I'll be getting to Winning Time. Maybe I'll sign up for HBO before so I can watch Winning Time before Hard Knocks. But
yeah,
definitely worth watching. Kind of tie it into the basketball theme. I'm going to go old school a little bit. This is back kind of to your era, Matt, with the Basketball Diaries. I just happened to come across it on TMC. I think I saw it originally, but rewatched it with Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Wahlberg. It was made in 1995. What's interesting, Jared, at least maybe to me, you'll laugh about it had 3 stars from The Sopranos was in that movie. Lorraine Bracco played Leonardo's mother. Michael Imperioli played one of the basketball players that was dying of cancer, and Vincent Pastore had a little bit part. He played Big Pussy in The Sopranos. He played a bit part. They were on the Staten Island ferry, and one of the young basketball players puked on his head.
Always comes back to The Sopranos.
It does. But for an overall movie, I thought it was well done. It was very depressing. It was a true story, and it featured DiCaprio and Wahlberg and some of his young buddies as high school basketball players at a Catholic high school in New Jersey. Now, the point I wanted to make was Winning Time, the actors really looked like they played some basketball. If you watch the Basketball Diaries, this looked like Teen Wolf or something. These guys were just horrible on the basketball court.
That's what makes any sports movie. If the actual sports looks realistic. I mean, sometimes, like Major League, the baseball isn't that realistic, but the movie is funny enough, like you can get by it. Like think about Hoosiers. If the story is incredible, but the basketball actually looks pretty good, so that's what kind of brings it all together. Like if Hoosiers the movie, the basketball looked terrible, it'd be like, okay, this is pretty corny. But since the basketball looked realistic, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about with I've seen Basketball Diaries. It's been a long time. I feel like I remember it being pretty corny, but with Winning Time actually looking like realistic basketball, that's what makes it that much better. Any given Sunday, a football movie, if the football doesn't look real, it's like, okay, this is stupid. Friday Night Lights, all that. When the actual sports looks good, then the movie's that much better.
I feel like that movie was made for like teenagers who liked basketball, who were maybe on the fence of doing drugs or not doing drugs. I remember when I was growing up, like some random summer day, my mom, loved Leonardo DiCaprio. We liked basketball, me and my brothers, so we kind of all watched it. And I remember leaving it thinking, oh God, I'll never touch drugs in my life, man. It totally destroys your basketball game. And another funny line from that movie I remember was like, I think it's Mark Wahlberg's character. They're like in the locker room before the game, and they're like, they have drugs or something, like pills. And he like throws the pills in his mouth, and he's like, I'm gonna get 50 rebounds tonight. Watch this. So he like throws like a whole bunch of like pills in his mouth and swallows them. But no, that's a great flick. I don't remember the corny basketball scenes though. I thought I remembered some like good scenes of DiCaprio and like his mentor or the guy who was helping him get off drugs. Maybe I misremembered that.
DiCaprio was mediocre at best, but the basketball scenes were pretty terrible. They do the cutaway. The guy would try the shot and you'd see it go through the rim, but it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I want to end my part here, guys, on the finish of a series. It's one of the all-time great TV series. You know how I love The Sopranos, but just finished up Ozark. Man, what a great 4 seasons of Ozark with Jason Bateman and the crew. I wasn't totally in love with the ending of it. I won't give any spoiler alerts because people are still catching up on Ozark. But if you do get a chance and haven't tuned into it yet on Netflix, it's well worth, maybe the 40 episodes, and check it out because it's really, really good.
That's what I've heard, is that the ending was very underwhelming. I've heard that from help people. I've only seen the first season of Ozark. I don't know why I haven't watched the rest. I liked it, just never, I guess for whatever reason, never kept watching it. But yeah, that's what I've heard, is that the ending, for how great the show is, the ending is very not that great.
Yeah, underwhelming is a perfect
Yeah.
description, and it just didn't seem to fit to me. But we'll leave it at that.
What's with all these like epic shows having terrible endings?
Yeah, like Seinfeld. Did you like Seinfeld's ending?
I mean, I thought it fit with the show.
Got it. Yeah,
I thought it fit with the show, being kind of a goofy, weird show. You know, them just sitting there in the jail cell. Sopranos. I know that's a very controversial ending. Obviously, Game of Thrones. You know, you guys have talked about that being a terrible ending. So all these like epic shows being like, you know, letdowns at the end. It's kind of.
I will say this though, I am on the side on the Sopranos. Final thought on that: the ending of that show was absolutely, in my view, perfect.
I view it the same way. I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened to him. I'm just gonna say it because if you haven't seen Sopranos,
it's not a spoiler alert.
For 20 years, he died. It is what it is. How they, I didn't, you know, it was a little bit weird how they shot it and stuff. You know, maybe I would have rather just actually have seen him die or at least get shot or something. And then, but no, he dies at the very end. So I
tend to agree with you on that thought. But the reason I thought it was a perfect ending because it was just everybody that was watching. You know, HBO and Sopranos Sunday night was the must watch. So you had to watch it on that Sunday night or you're going to be out of the water cooler loop. So you're watching it and the end of the show. And Matt, you're aware of how it ended, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the show, all of a sudden, you know, there's all this tension. The family's in this restaurant. There, you know, there's a battle between the New York gang and the New Jersey gang. And they're after Tony's crew. They've already shot 2 or 3 of his lieutenants. Him and his family are sitting in this restaurant. A guy comes in a jacket that what's a members only jacket. It ties into the rest of the show. He walks by them, and then all of a sudden the screen goes black. And the majority of America thought something went wrong with the HBO feed.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is and the reason that it's important how they frame it, because, you know, they show Tony, then they show what he's looking at. Then they show Tony, then they show what he's looking at. Then they show Tony, then they show what he's looking at. Then they show Tony, then they show the screen black. So it's like he got whacked. Now,
here's the question for you before we wrap up the program. Do you think just he got whacked? Or do you think the whole family got whacked?
I think just him.
I agree.
Oh, how did this turn into a Sopranos? Like, if you need to,
because I'm driving it. That's
Sopranos, why. Sopranos recap show or something, man. To get
this is Ted's pitch to do just a Sopranos podcast.
Well, you guys have heard me talk about it before. My favorite podcast that I'm just finishing up is Talking Sopranos, and it's one of the if you're a Sopranos TV show fan, it's a must listen to. Listen to 3 Point Podcast, but add Talking Sopranos to the list because it's tremendous. Imperioli and Bobby, I mean, they recap every single episode, tell you behind the scenes stuff. They have guests from the show that's on there, including the creator, David Chase. You get all the background. I can't give it any higher praise. Talking Sopranos 3.0, 3 Point Podcast.
Evan Malone from The Office. I can't, I'm drawing a blank on the actor's name. He has a very similar podcast where he goes through all the Office episodes. Really, really, really. I only listened to the first season now that I'm thinking about it, but really, really well done podcast.
The girls do too. Angela and Pam, they have a podcast too.
Well, there you go. You know, so it's something else to add to our list. Our listeners, obviously, you got to put 3 Point Podcast at the top, but there's some other good entertainment out there. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we sign off?
I watched now I'm just blinking on it. The clown serial killer.
John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy. I was gonna say William Gacy, but I knew that wasn't right. Yeah, so we watched that, and again, because I'm as into those shows as you are. It is just crazy to think about that this dude was just like living a life with 30 bodies under his house. Like, and I know technology was different, things were just different back in those days, but every time that he was kind of connected to people, like a kid went to work for his construction company and then just disappeared. A kid went to work for him or whatever. And then how did people not start saying like, this dude is kind of like connected to a lot of these kids that are disappearing? And, you know, and then hearing the tapes, just creepy to hear how just that didn't affect him, you know, just these people that are just clearly psychopaths. And then the thing I always say, it comes back to abusive father, He was
Mhm.
abused as a kid. He was neglected as a kid. So he clearly wasn't wired right in the head, but it goes back to the way he was treated as a child, beat, abused, neglected, all that kind of stuff. So
Nurture, not nature, right?
yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jared, you got to check that one out. But then again, maybe not, especially if you're home at night alone, because we don't want the night terrors to pop up, because they definitely will, won't they, Matt?
Start seeing clowns in your sleep.
Yeah, no, that stuff is freaking freaky, man. That's real. That's real. That's the serious part about it, is that happened, man.
That's the bad part. All right, let's call it a pod. This has been the 3 Point Podcast, presented by Memorial Healthcare, home of the Now Community Wellness Center. Follow us at 3 Point Pod, and make sure you spread the word to all your friends, even your enemies. We don't care. We need listeners hopping on board left and right. And make sure you let all our great partners know you listen in and enjoy the show. They include Crow Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the Wash of Owasso, and the ALS Association of Michigan. Until next time, so long, everyone. Thanks for listening, and stay strong, Ukraine.